It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Catholic Cardinals assistant rowing coach, Ashley Adamo. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in college athletics as a college coach?
I didn't necessarily graduate undergrad knowing that I wanted to become a coach, but I was presented with the opportunity to be the graduate assistant here at Catholic and receive my master's in psychology. I totally jumped on it and decided it would be like the biggest learning experience that I could have within like a few months or so. And so I took that opportunity, and I've been learning how much I really enjoy coaching as I do it.
What was that like attending Rutgers and getting to compete as a rowing athlete?
I loved my time at Rutgers. I did not enter the school as an athlete. Rowing has this really cool thing called novice rowing, and universities welcome people who are incoming freshmen or have been at the school for some time and are, have an athletic mindset and would succeed in sports, but didn't necessarily come to the school with on a sports scholarship with sports in mind, but are attracted to what rowing can offer them. And so that's what that was my experience. It was like one of the first days of school, my freshman year, and we had a fair, saw these really tall, really strong athletes, women, and I went up to the coach and I was like, where do I sign up? And I just loved it ever since. And I am so grateful for my experience at Rutgers as an athlete. Rutgers athletics was such a privilege, and I can't even think of what my experience at Rutgers would be like if I weren't in athletics.
Of course, what was that like getting into athletics and not going as a scholarship athlete?
I definitely experienced some imposter syndrome my first year as a novice, because we weren't on varsity yet, and everything felt as it does, like everything was earned. And so I didn't feel like I had the same seat at the table that someone who, say, was on scholarship or was on varsity or came to the university with a different sport, but as an athlete with that athletic mindset already in school. I almost felt like these are uncharted waters. I was an athlete in high school, but did not think I would be a Division I Big Ten athlete in a sport I had never done before. But once the imposter syndrome subsided and I realized like I am meant to be here and I really enjoy it and I do a good job, I mean, it was just like a whole new world opened up.
Of course, what was that like going through high school as an athlete, and did you compete in rowing? So you had somewhat of experience in rowing?
I did not know what rowing was in high school. I was a mediocre high school athlete at best. I played soccer for my whole life, and I ran track and threw in the field events. And I really enjoyed weightlifting. I didn't really enjoy running that much. I was mediocre and probably was going to do some type of club soccer in college, but I only knew rowing from the Olympics, which I feel like everyone says. And we would drive to Massachusetts every year, and I would see like the Harvard cruise along the river, and I thought they were super cool. That was it. That was my only knowledge.
Of course, what was that transition like from going from being a track athlete as a thrower to getting into the boat as a rower?
The workouts were different. The mindset was the same. In rowing, though, I learned that if I work at something, I can be really good at it. Some of it, not all of it, is skill and talent, but like if you really, really work hard, you can have some pretty cool results. And I learned that through rowing, positive self-talk does way more for you athletically and outside of athletics than negative self-talk and self-deprivation.
Of course, once you became a rower for Rutgers. What was that like getting to represent the Rutgers and compete in the Big Ten?
That was surreal, and loved wearing the block R on my chest in my uniform. It was such a proud moment. My teammates were my family. My rowers were my sisters. I was just elated to have such a community of Rutgers athletics, not just the rowing team, supporting one another. And yeah, competing in the Big Ten was so cool. Like all of the schools the names that you would recognize that are all, dominate athletics elsewhere became my competitors.
What was that like, obviously, getting to compete against some of those teams that dominated the conferences like Penn State?
Well, Penn State doesn't have a women's varsity rowing team, but like a team like University of Michigan, who has like been extremely successful in their career, in their like athletic overall career. Being able to race against them and seeing like the margins close, as well as like Ohio State, it only made us better. That's simply put.
Of course, coming out of college, what was that like getting into college coaching and coaching as an assistant coach for rowing?
Big learning curve. Like I said, I understand so much more about the sport now, so much more of the complexities that I just did mindlessly almost. And now I really understand the mechanics and the physics behind it, and also all the admin work that I had no idea goes on behind the scenes.
Of course, what are some of the things that you took from your time at Rutgers to help you to become a college coach for Catholic Cardinals?
I took away, so many things. One, my experience as an athlete and what really contributed to my personal successes, like what I would deem as successes, because rowing can be a very mentally like turbulent sport, and a lot of times rowing is entangled with self-worth. And so I really wanted to take my opportunity as a coach to like break those two apart and be like, your self-worth is not defined by your outputs as an athlete. Yeah. And I had a director of operations at Rutgers. Her name was Mary, and I wanted to just emulate the positivity that she brought every day to the Rutgers staff and to all the athletes.
Of course, once you got to Catholic Cardinals, what was that feeling like becoming a college coach for the first time?
Nerve-wracking. I was very nervous, and I still get nervous sometimes, but I realize I'm where I'm supposed to be.
What has that experience been like since coming to Catholic Cardinals, being a novice coach?
It's been pretty cool seeing, like, looking back at my past self as a novice and being able to teach and regurgitate the information that I learned over the past 4 years and bring on a whole new wave of rowers who were not once introduced to the sport besides by Catholic.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, getting to introduce the sport of rowing to those novice people that haven't ever learned about the sport of rowing?
It's really cool. I have a lot of enthusiasm when it comes down to rowing, and I have a lot of understanding as to like the difficulties that may arise as well. Just coming to a school without having any semblance of like being an athlete at the school and representing the school, and then all of a sudden you're just like committed to doing that. So my goal was just to like be the best support and have them, either the people that try out on the novice squad and decide it's not for them, try out, do the season, decide varsity is not for them, or move up to varsity. I want them to leave their experience on the team better than when they came as athletes, individuals, students, etc.
Of course, now that you're a novice coach, what would you tell your younger self that was at Rutgers that was getting started into the sport of rowing?
I'd probably tell her that this sport is going to do way more for you than what you originally think.
What has that been like, obviously, teaching the novice about the basics of rowing?
It's required a deeper understanding myself of the mechanics around a single rowing stroke, what creates a successful rower, a successful boat. And so understanding that on my end allows me to better articulate it to someone who has no knowledge of rowing vocabulary.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a coach for the Catholic Cardinals?
Well, we actually have our first spring race tomorrow morning. So we have been prepping this past week and especially today So I'm a little sweaty because we've been doing that thus far. So we'll have basically on the coach's end the day before we'll prep everything to load onto the buses, and on the rowing end, what we have to do to transport the boats is take all of the equipment off they're called riggers. So you de-rig the boat, load it onto the trailer, strap it down, and then the trailer is attached to a truck, drives all of our equipment down to our race course. And then we arrive at the race course. So then on race day, we'll arrive at our athletic center. Rowing is a very early morning sport. So we'll have breakfast available, and athletes will get on the buses. We'll drive to wherever our race is. And when we arrive, first thing we do is go right to the trailer and get all of our equipment, take it off, put all of the riggers back on, and have everything prepared to row. So our bodies, our equipment, our boats, our minds, our race plan. And this time is personally for me, with my very little experience thus far as being a coach on race day, it's one of my more chill days because I know that I've given them, the athletes, everything that they need to know to be successful, and they will be successful. Completing a race is success, and there's nothing I can do to control the outcome of what happens on the water when I'm on land. So that's it's a little bit more about the powwow, the motivation that comes from the coach, as opposed to any type of last minute training. But race days are usually fun filled. They're typically on the longer side, and lots of tools, rigging, de-rigging, loading, unloading. It's basically.
Of course, what is that feeling going to feel like as a coach to see your rowers compete for the first time and even compete throughout the season?
Pride. There's a video of me with my novices this past spring at their first race ever, and I'm just beaming. I'm like, they didn't win, but I was so proud and I was so excited for them. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that feeling every race.
Of course, as a coach, what is it like getting to see them compete on that screen and see how they're competing?
It feels pretty cool to watch them succeeding. It feels great.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've helped to build for the Catholic Cardinals rowing program?
Sure. So we've done a lot of culture building this past year, and we before I even got here, Coach Katie O'Driscoll is our head coach. She has created these binders, and our binder sessions are so important. They're pivotal to the way that we interact with ourselves, our teammates, the culture. And so we have these prompts that are written, and it's basically a workbook. And after any harder session, like workout, row, we'll reflect and go through the workbook, and we'll have a prompt. And then we'll talk about it. We're just on the coaching side. We want to have a gauge of what works for the athletes. Where can we help you succeed in the sport outside of making a workout plan? So being a part of that is so new and so cool for me, where it's a seriously open dialogue between the coaching staff and the athletes, and just a deeper understanding of who they are as individuals, and the kindness that we all bring to one another as Catholic rowing.
Of course, what does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to compete in college rowing?
So we'll typically hit the road and go to the bigger regattas. So headed to Charles, headed to Schuylkill in the fall for high school racing, and we'll get to chat with student athletes who have reached out to us. We'll be able to watch races and get a gauge for the type of rower that they are. Typically, we may also reach out to high school students and invite them to come on, a launch ride, a visit, and then if they get through the process, overnight and official.
What does that official visit look like for those prospective student athletes coming into the Catholic Cardinals?
So they'll wake up. Coach Katie says dark and early, because usually the sun hasn't yet acquainted us. So we're at the boathouse before the sun rises, and they'll come on the launch with our head coach. They'll have a nice, either iced or hot cup of coffee waiting for them, whatever their order is. And they'll get to see it practice on the water. If we're on the ergs, then they'll get to see an indoor practice, coffee included. And then it'll typically be breakfast at the new dining hall here with some teammates. There'll be an official campus tour that can be run by like our campus student leaders, a tour of the athletic facilities, a one-on-one meeting with our head coach. Our head coach may also, while the official is with some of the athletes here, Coach Katie may sit down, grab a cup of coffee with their parents. We'll typically do dinner to get lunch and or dinner at one of the nearby restaurants near campus. And they'll stay with one of our athletes overnight if it's an overnight visit. And yeah, it's usually a good time.
Who are some of the teams that you compete against in your conference?
Sure. So we this week actually we're competing at the Washington College Invitational, and so we're on the women's side. We're racing against Washington College, Bryn Mawr, Adrian. Who else? I think we're racing against Marietta. Our men are racing against Villanova. We've got some great racing upcoming, and I'm really looking forward to being against these teams this tomorrow.
Of course, what is that going to feel like as a coach and even for your players to race against some of those D1 teams, but also D2 teams?
It's great to have a competition. It will only make us better.
What are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
Continuing the open dialogue that we have with the athletes, the systems that we set in place. So instead of creating goals, we create systems. So that great James Clear quote from Atomic Habits: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So we want our systems to be pretty high, pretty near our goals. So that looks like intentional warm up. That looks like quick on the dock. That looks like all these things that make our team great behind the scenes every day. Those mindless muscle memory activities that it's part of the culture. It's just part of what we do. So recruiting more athletes who have those same systems, building a novice culture of hard workers willing to just do their best and compare themselves only to themselves, right? Improve relative to themselves.
As a college coach, what is it like getting to see those people, your players, get to put on that uniform to represent Catholic Cardinals for the first time?
It's exciting, and it's nice to see them really excited too. They always light up when they get their unis and their gear.
What is that like to see those freshmen blossom into seniors and represent the Cardinals?
I haven't seen that yet. I've only seen the transition from novice athletes to varsity athletes, and it's just if the freshman to senior transition is anything like that novice to varsity transition, it's going to be a huge, I see the progress in a semester, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing progress over years.
What advice would you give those high school athletes that are looking to represent college rowing program?
Let's say your 2K is not everything. You don't live and die by your 2K. It's important, but it's not the only thing. And your attitude and what you bring to the team is seriously what the coach is looking for. They want to bring you in and help elevate the team just by your personality. So just let your personality shine.
What advice would you give those freshmen that are entering their first year of college rowing?
You are worth more than your outputs, and you are going to improve so much over the course of a few months, a few years. And this sport can provide you with such amazing opportunities. And I really hope you take advantage of precisely what this sport can provide.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are competing in rowing that are looking to get into college coaching like you did?
It's going to feel scary at first, and you may think that you don't belong there. It may be a familiar feeling from when you began rowing, but just know that you're meant to be wherever you end up, and coaching is really fun, and to connect with your athletes. They're amazing people.
What advice would you give those future college coaches that are looking to get started in the sport of college rowing, being assistant coaches? Understanding
that rowing is a particularly precious sport, and it can change people's lives, as I'm sure most other sports can as well. But reading up on those personal stories, those people who just bring personality to rowing, not necessarily all of the big statistics, which are important, but what has made rowing special for certain people.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Catholic Cardinals rowing program at?
So you guys can find me on my LinkedIn. That's where I kind of communicate with most professionals. It's my name, Ashley Adamo, and the Catholic Women's Instagram is CatholicU_W rowing.
Thank you again, Coach Ashley Adamo, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Catholic Cardinals as the assistant women's rowing coach.
Thank you, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brand, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Ashley Adamo, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.